Hello, good afternoon, Yorkshire Classic Cars Ltd fans. Welcome to my workshop. First rundown of what's going on in the next few weeks in the old workshop here of 2024. First off, I'd like to say thank you for joining me. I'd also like to say, as you know, it costs nothing to subscribe. People say it all the time. Noticing that about 30–40% of my viewers are subscribed. If the other half of you could subscribe, that'd be marvellous. I'm nearly up to 1,000 subscribers. But if you could just subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. It doesn't cost you anything. It takes 10 seconds. But I understand if you don't, that's also fine. First off, okay, emptied a lot of workshop work out over Christmas. I'd like to introduce you to an Austin 1100. Here she is behind me. This is a car I was contacted about towards the end of last year. It's coming for what most Austin 1100s ended up needing, which is sills. Customer bought it, looked in very, very good condition, a couple of tiny little rust spots. As we can see, here's what happens when you see a rust blob. That's what you've got, I'm afraid. You've got a hole usually, and same here. Excuse me. It's had bits of work done in the past, but unfortunately the sills were chock full of filler. Now then, it's only sat on the trailer, I hasten to add. I haven't literally just brought it. I brought it towards the end of last week. However, in case I need to move it around, it's just easier to do it on the trailer, and it takes a little less space up. So yeah, it's had new floors put in. They've slotted some floors in there and red oxided them, as you can see. However, the inner sill, where they've connected it to the inner sill, is best described as an MOT repair, I think. I have literally, well, I do know why people do that. But yeah, it's not right and it's not pretty. So these are going to come out. I'm going to repair the inner sill, this inner sill that I've got my hand on here, replace the outer sills with some new ones. And then underneath, there's you probably can't see it 'cause it's quite dark under here. There's a closing panel here. And they've just been welded along the edges, not properly spot welded. As you can see it here, there's a honking great big hole in it. So that's all to be done. The only problem we're having now is the wait time on sills turns out to be 10 weeks. So if anybody's got a pair of 1100 sills for a 4-door or a 1300 4-door, please get in touch. I will say, although it's got sill issues and a few other issues, it's really nice to drive this little car. I hated these with such a passion when I was a child. My mum and dad had one of these. And when this is sort of in the early 80s, and I was going to school in the morning at the primary school, and I was remembering my mum having one of these and pulling up to the school, and everybody had a Cortina or later on a Sierra. And we used to pull up in this blooming Austin 1100, and I hated that thing with such a passion. Now I have to say it fills me full of love. I really do like it. They are a great little car, and to be honest, I pulled it onto the trailer. It starts and drives. It drives absolutely lovely. It's one of the nicest driving classic cars I've driven for ages. So although it's a little bit rotten around the edges, which, let's be fair, we've said it before and I'll say it again, most 70s cars are, it does actually drive really nicely. And you've got to love that grille. Whoever designed that grille, absolute genius. Of course, it uses the same engine and transmission as a Mini. And I always, the one thing I did always like was the upswept exhaust in the middle. But yeah, that's a 71, 72, something like that. And I do rather like it. Ironically, it's the same age as my Capri, and it does look, if you put it up against the Capri, it does look dated. But, you know, over Christmas, done loads. I don't know if you've seen my Capri update. I've done literally tons on the Capri. It's coming on lovely. Stayed back the other night. What I will say, I'll put you back on the old selfie stick. I damaged my back this week. Assuming it's old age, of course, I've never done it before, and I'm reasonably strong, having worked with me, with my hands for many years. I've never suffered. I didn't twist. I bent over the boot of the Capri. Thus, I was just bobbing a petrol sender unit in for for the fuel gauge. I've weakened and fitted a fuel gauge instead of risking it all the time. And yeah, I bent over to do that. I stood back up just like this. I didn't twist, didn't have any weight in my hands, and my back just went, and I had to waddle from here, the back of the Capri, over to the chair over yonder, to try and pick up my phone to attempt and ring my girlfriend and ask her what on earth I might have done, because I just genuinely didn't know. The pain was absolutely horrific, and I had to waddle across in a little squat. So if I do look like I've pooed myself, that's why. It is making me walk a little bit funny. I do apologise for that. Not that anybody watches this to look at me. Little bits moved on the Stag, the Mimosa Stag. I've finally fitted this. The air filter intake there above the radiator. Horrible job, because you have to loosen all the radiator bolts. And of course, the captive nuts have usually gone, which these had. And I've put nuts and bolts in, which are a pain in the backside. That means taking the grill off, which is another pain in the backside. However, it's done, it's in, it's there. Looks a 5-minute job, but it really isn't. The interior is now sorted. I don't know if you can see the centre console is all done. This car was causing me a little bit of a headache. Basically, the fan didn't work. So when I started to wire up the centre console and put the switches in, I connected the fan switch. There's 3 wires on the back of the fan switch. It's a 2-speed fan. One's an ignition live, and then the other one feeds through a resistor to slow down the flow of electricity and slow down the motor, and one's direct. It's difficult to get them wrong. There are, like, I think there's 7 poles on the back of the switch. It's a 2-position pull switch, maybe 9. I can't remember, but either way, you can usually work it out. You find out which is the live, or you know which is the live, and then you sort of just connect the others till it all works. And then that didn't work. I tested the switch. That did work, which was upsetting. I shorted across the connectors with a piece of welding rod, and the fan didn't come on. Now, if you've ever done this job, if you've ever had any dealings with a Stag heater, the heater is obviously under the dashboard, and the whole dash has to come out, the console, most of the carpets. It's a gigantic job. When I did the white Stag, one of the white Stags that you've seen on videos previously, the heater matrix decided to, well, the outlet just cracked, and I had to remove it just to solder on the pipe outlet here. And I soldered it and pressure tested it, put it back in, and it's been fine ever since, thank God. However, stripping it out, ginormous job. Huge, massive job. And I was praying I wouldn't have to do that. Anyway, I managed to find the fan. It turns out that if you take the centre vent out, you can see the fans through there. I hoped, having been stood for a while, maybe it had just got a bit stiff or seized up or rusted, and it just might need turning a few times. So I did that. And it turns out once I took that out, you can just turn the fan. It's as free as a bird. So yeah, I could see a few wires dangling about behind there, and I'm thinking there's an earth lead there. I wonder if the earth's just dropped off. So I start to trace it back, and it turns out there's a 3-pin connector on there. Well, it turns out I know it's there. However, I traced it back to the connector, and it turns out I'd just plugged it in wrong. So that was a little moment of happiness. I almost became religious for 30 seconds, but now that centre console is now in. I just need to find the electric window switches. I have one to hand. I'm still looking for one of these for the driver's door. If anybody has one. The original was ruined, and I can't find any others. I thought I had some spares, but I can't put my hands on them. So yeah, the fan now works, all the electrics work, even the heated rear window light comes on, which is a bit of a bonus, which has led me to the other hateful task that I'm doing on it. Oh, sorry, yes, you can see it's got the tyres on now. The tyres are on the wheels are powder coated, the fronts are on. I just need to get to the backs to put them on, and then I can polish up the hubcaps and put those back on. There is a leak. I'll just take you off the gimbal a sec. There is a leak under here. You can see what I do there. I put a piece of fresh card under the gearbox. I knew the gearbox was weeping oil. But going on a 35, it's quite common for leaking oil. If it was an odd spot here or there, I wouldn't worry about it one iota, because quite honestly, it's always going to do that. They always leak oil. They're a pain. However, this one's leaking quite copious amounts, as you can see. So what you do is you put a clean piece of card. That was something that my windows came in for my Capri. And then you can see exactly where it's dripping from. And as you can see, it's the rear of the gearbox. Just put you on the gimbal, sorry again. The gearbox was rebuilt before I fitted it. It came out of a car at Yorkshire Triumphs that had an automatic to manual conversion, but it was actually a brand new rebuilt gearbox. But it never seemed to leak oil. But I think I know it's the gasket now and the sump gasket on the automatic transmission. So what I've got to do is order one of those, pull it off, and reseal it. Again, they do often leak. They're only a cork gasket. And if it's ever been over tightened, that's probably the issue. One of the bolts was stripped in it, and I put a nut on, put a longer bolt in actually, and ran it further into the threads. And that locked up lovely, that nipped up lovely. But the problem is, if it's already, somebody's been trying to tighten it and hence strip that thread out of the transmission case, that's probably what's caused it. But I'll whip it off. I may do it there, but I have had to refill it with oil. So now there's going to be about 2 gallons of oil to come out of it. So I'll get it drained off. It is clean, fresh oil, so I would rather not dispose of it. But if I have to, I have to. And yeah, once that's done, we're there. Actually, apart from a good clean and a good polish and bring this back, I flattered some runs and some paint defects out of it. The chap who painted this closed down, so he's not there to do those defects now. He would have done them, obviously. So yeah, once that's done, I've got the seal spot on the windows, and that's it, really. It can go back. So that'd be nice to see that gone. The other job I've been doing, if I scoot you around, is some wheel arches, some carbon fibre Minimelia wheel arches on a Mini here. She sits on the ramp. As you can see, they are ginormous and incredibly stressful to do. These need to be done, basically, you've got to cut the entire outer arch out, sorry. As you can see, I've done that in there, and then I've put the edging. The owner had some edging trim for down the outer seams, but he didn't want to use it. So what I've done is I've put that over the cut edge to try and give it a little bit of integrity. And what I've done is I've glued that on and carried it on so it just comes around there. So when you look at it, you've just got a black edge trim on there. You can see down the edge, I've sealed it and glued it on there, look. So that's all done. When you get these, they're a single skin. They've come from a company called Carbon Weasel. Really nice, genuine carbon fibre. Single thickness though, so very thin, very wibbly wobbly. You have to glue these sort of hinge-affared mounts on there with some super duper PU adhesive, which I've done. The rears I've had to trim down and shape to fit the bodywork, but they do fit really nicely. It's got to be up in the air, but it needs these done so the engine can be sorted out and tuned and faffed about with, because obviously he couldn't test drive it, so he couldn't really sort the engine out. So she's still a non-goer. However, that's the last one to do over here. I've got that one to do, but unfortunately I need to pull the fuel tank back out to do it. And that is, the glue is drying on this one. So these are glued on. I like to leave them about 24 hours to make sure they're absolutely stuck solid. That one's moved ever so slightly. I'm going to have to adjust that one. Okay. So yeah, I like to make sure those have cured fully before I put them on, because obviously they need to be a good solid fit. You see I've spaced them back a little bit, so it pulls the arch to the bodywork, and that's the edge trim that goes on like a rubber edge. But you can see there I've had to cut it all the way around and shape it. And that's to improve the fit against the bodywork. Obviously these are for racing cars, so quite honestly, if you put them on your racer and they don't fit perfectly, that's no big loss. But for a street car, it needs to be right. As you can see, I've cut that so it sits pretty well to there. The front ones, obviously the wheels come out as the wheel goes, as the weight goes on it. So they sit quite about, well, pretty much identical. So, but you can't trim the fronts. They just kind of come as they are. You can't reshape these at all. So you're stuck with that. If you do take them in, obviously they need to be bigger to allow the wheel to turn and stuff. So anywho, that's that. So yeah, there's the update. Lots going on. Not huge amounts. Sorry, rubbish gimbal. Not huge amounts, but we're working along at the minute. It's always quiet this time of year. I've some other vehicles coming in the next couple of weeks, booked in for the next couple of weeks, which are going to be of interest. don't really want to announce them till they turn up, but my car's still tootling along, getting bits done. Dashboard's all now sat in. I've retrimmed it all. The switch panel, I stayed till 8 o'clock the other night, mostly because I dared drive home when I'd hurt my back. But yeah, so that's all. I did those bits because I couldn't sit down or anything. If I did, I couldn't get back up. So yeah, that's all there. The engine's still not built, and you know, just try to do little bits and pieces while I'm waiting for the sills for the 1100, and while I'm waiting for bits to dry on the Mini. But the Mini has plenty to do yet, so she's not ready to leave yet. Okie dokie. So thanks for watching. Please send a like and a subscription. If you have anything to say, by all means, comment. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your subscriptions. Really do. Very much appreciate it. If you're still here at the end of the video, very much appreciate it. Okay. Thanks for your time. Cheers. Bye-bye.